Welcome to the JCPS MTSS training on the Classroom Systems Toolkit with a focus on the application Behavior Momentum. I am Sarah Adams, MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher with Elementary Zone 1.
I am Matt Traskus, MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher with the High School Zone. Please take a moment to write down or type the case-sensitive bit.ly into your browser. This will allow you to access the slide deck and all the other links for future reference. These are the components of MTSS, or multi-tiered systems of support. As you can see, MTSS provides multiple levels of support for all learners and aligns resources and support with our district's 6 systems for students and for teachers who deliver and support instruction. MTSS addresses academic, social, emotional, and behavioral development. It focuses on overall school improvement that is sustainable. JCPS has 3 departments within MTSS as shown on this concept map. MTSS Academics, directed by Donna Lawson, supports schools by ensuring teachers are providing all students with academic supports, with a focus on Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions of support. MTSS Behavior Department, directed by Sandra Hensel, supports schools in implementing school-wide behavior systems and frameworks, including positive behavior interventions and supports, or PBIS, and the Behavior Supports System model, which is an alignment of PBIS and restorative practices. Our department is MTSS Engagement, directed by Dr. Naomi Ibrahim. The goal of MTSS Engagement Department is to increase students' achievement by equipping teachers with high-yield pedagogical practices to maximize student engagement. 6 MTSS toolkits were created to provide resources for Tier 1 instructional practices to increase this student engagement, reduce student misbehaviors, and to decrease disproportionality. Here are the 6 MTSS toolkits. By clicking the toolkit image, you will access the MTSS department webpage and each toolkit. To ground our thinking for the classroom systems that support Behavior Toolkit, we will utilize this definition. Teachers use academic and behavioral data to prescribe short and long-term supports for students to meet and exceed standards and strengthen their sense of belonging. This toolkit is broken down into 3 high-yield practices defined by John Hattie as practices teachers can use to move learning forward. All 3 are needed to apply the application Behavior Momentum. It is important that you familiarize yourself with these practices prior to using this application. The first high-yield practice is student-teacher relationships. Any educator is said to have a good student-teacher relationship when the degree of interactions between themselves and the student end positively. This is easily seen in classrooms with positive environments and few problem behaviors. Remember, the bulk of the work is on the teacher to cultivate and maintain this positive relationship. The next high-yield practice is classroom management. In this practice, teachers set rules and expectations, sometimes with the aid of students, and then use positive strategies to have students adhere with the rules. These rules should be reasonable based on grade level, and the outcomes of the teacher and student interactions should be positive. Having good classroom management is a major indicator of student success. The third high-yield practice, teacher expectations of performance. Teachers who believe students can succeed have a great impact not only on their academic success, but their behavioral success as well. In order to have high expectations, teachers should voice these expectations independently of the school-wide expectations. Emphasize growth and progress in their expectations. Regularly communicate these expectations. Give students reasonable challenges. Encourage the student that they can be successful. and give regular feedback on student progress. Teacher expectations can be applied to the whole class or, if necessary, to individual students after being modified for their needs. For the specific application of behavior momentum, it is defined as a strategy that is useful to get students to perform tasks with a low probability of success. It is used to get a student moving in the right direction by providing them with simple, high probability of success requests and providing them reinforcement for their successes. Once a student is successful, then they are to move on to a more difficult task. Before we dive more into the specifics of behavior momentum, let's talk about tiered or layered supports. Notice the graphic on the side showing the varying levels of support, starting with Tier 1 for all students being the foundation, Tier 2 supports layered on top of that, providing an additional layer to Tier 1 for a smaller percentage of students. Then Tier 3 being layered on both of these and for an even smaller percentage of students. Our focus of today's training, behavior momentum, can be used as a Tier 2 or a Tier 3 support. Teachers will know that they're successful in creating behavior momentum when reluctant students are completing a higher probability of success tasks, which lead them to a lower completion of the lower probability tasks. For this presentation, we will learn how to effectively implement the behavior momentum strategy in the classroom. We will know we are successful with this strategy when we can determine appropriate ways to use the application when given a scenario and reflect on its usefulness in our own classroom. There are 4 key steps in implementing behavior momentum in the classroom. First is the identification of the student who will not or is reluctant to engage in an activity. Next, it's to plan out interventions. These interventions may not be the use of the application, but rather the in-the-moment remedies such as positive praise for on-task behavior or giving the student tasks that they are highly probable that they would complete. Third, it's time to actually implement the application by addressing the student, informing them that their current behavior is an issue, making a single high probability of success request, and when the student is successful with that, immediate praise. Finally, track the behavior and successes and determine when it is appropriate to fade the strategy out. If, after a few attempts, the strategy is not giving the desired levels of success, be flexible and implement another strategy. Using a method of data collection based upon the ask and response rate or the success time of a low probable task, or even how many successes a student has, can give teachers great insight into how students are truly behaving. Factual data can help the teacher reflect and to utilize the applications both equitably and with fidelity. Consider this scenario. Ms. Connell teaches 6th grade and has a student, Andy, who has challenged her patience by avoiding work on a math project for well over a month. Every time she brings up the project to Andy, he sighs, moans, and moves frustratingly slow manner as to never get really started. In what ways do you believe that behavior momentum could be used in this scenario? While considering the following steps, take a moment to think and reflect on this scenario. Ensure that you identify the problem at hand prior to attempting to correct the behavior. In this video, Watch the application of behavioral momentum in action.
I need a student that's really responsible to do something for me. Do you think that could be you? All right, good. I was hoping so because I've been talking to your coach about how responsible you've been in basketball and how you've really been stepping up in practice. And so I need someone who can have that responsibility in my class to help me. You think you can? All right, can you move those paws, the blue paws from the whiteboard back over to the chalkboard for me? Thank you. All right, guys, let's make sure we're working on our bow work, okay? So we need to be working. Hey, Janaya, thanks for doing that for me. I know it takes a lot of responsibility sometimes to do things that I ask, and I really appreciate it. And I see that you are becoming more responsible, and I'm really, really proud of you. And, you know, that's our classroom reward system. So I only trust students who are really responsible to move those paws because I could mess up another class's score. Since you're being so responsible, do you think you could do me something else? All right. Can you get my iPad off of my computer for me so I can take attendance? Thank you. Thank you so much, Janaya. Hey, thank you for being so responsible and getting that. You know, I don't let everyone go back there, but I trust my responsible students to do things for me. And, you know, you started off the day really great. And I'm excited to see how responsible you are with this project because, you know, that's a lot of our grade. And I'm excited to see that you be a leader and to take that leadership responsibility. You think you're going to do awesome later, too? Awesome.
From the video, notice that the teacher used the application of behavioral momentum to set the student up for success. She then used positive reinforcement with a personal connection. She repeated the task, gave another, and then even allowed for student appraisal. Take a moment to reflect on your class. Choose a specific student to apply this strategy. Make sure to create a plan that is actionable for both you and the student. Don't forget to write down your plan for easier implementation. When using behavioral momentum, there are a few important points to remember. First, behavioral momentum is an application designed to help the student comply with an action that they already know how to do, not to learn any new material. To create a classroom environment that is culturally responsive, teachers must be aware of the cultural norms of the students. Based on these norms, some student behavior interventions are more appropriate than others. Whichever intervention is chosen, the goal is to create a community of learners that feel appreciated for who they are. In classrooms where ECE students are present, teacher collaboration and data collection are key. Be certain to collect data on the specific behavior and track this behavior. Collaborate with the student's teacher of record, or TOR, to help implement appropriate interventions. Follow up with the TOR if the interventions are working or if they are not successful. Creating a collaborative learning environment requires teachers to have solid classroom management skills. When engaging your students in authentic projects, be certain that you have the appropriate class-wide and individual behavior supports in place. These supports will increase engagement in students and increase the likelihood of a successful project. In reflecting on your own practice, consider the following as possible next steps for dealing with classroom misbehaviors. Ensure that you record the number of times the behavior is seen and responded to appropriately as your baseline data. Try giving the student high probability of success requests each day to see if you can fade that support away. If given a low probability of success task, perhaps track the time the student spends on the task whether or not they complete it in order to calculate if more support is needed. Be sure to reference the Classroom Systems Toolkit for more information. On this slide, you will find supports from the MTSS plan and JCPS Behavior Intervention Grid with a link. This grid gives potential interventions for commonly seen classroom behaviors. For those wishing to know more about the application of behavior momentum in your classroom, here are some associated references. Thank you for joining us to learn more about behavior momentum. For more information on this application and many others, please visit the MTSS website.